This is Full Album Playlist, and today I am going to be talking about another album that was originally going to be a part of the 5 More Halloween albums recommendations video that I was going to do a while back. This one is called Giles Corey or Giles Corey, whichever you prefer, and it is the self-titled album because the band is also called Giles Corey. Giles Corey is a side project of Dan Barrett, who is the band Have a Nice Life's frontman. As a sidebar, I would also recommend Have a Nice Life's music because it is also dark and industrial. But Giles Corey's sound is very slow and brooding. Much of the sound is lo-fi and acoustic, like it was made in a barn somewhere on the East Coast. I say East Coast because the theme of the album is the Salem witch trials, which is where the album and band gets its name. Giles Corey is a person who actually lived and died during the witch trials by being crushed alive with rocks. They added weight on his chest little by little until he just died right in front of them. There is even a scene in the popular play and movie The Crucible representing this event. Giles Corey's story is represented nicely in the first song, The Haunting Presence, which kicks off with the lyrics, Giles Corey, bloody and gory, we will redress your wrongs, bloody and battered, nothing matters. Dan Barrett uses Giles Corey's death in his lyrics to basically say that a God that would allow an innocent man to die in such a horrible way couldn't possibly exist. This is evident from the lyrics, and I don't care if I live or die, because I ain't ever going to no other side. There ain't no heaven and there ain't no hell, but I am a sinner, so it's all just as well. Immediately following in the song. There is then a fittingly haunting refrain repeating there's a devil on my back, legs, and chest.
My neck, my back.
Sort of representing the weight being added and crushing him. This can also be seen as the singer's sins crushing him in a more metaphorical sense. The music all the while is building a very creepy atmosphere with minimal grainy piano slowly starting the song, and with an increase in the shouty, distorted vocals. There's even chain sounds that eventually come in, kind of representing the fact that Giles Corey was a prisoner in reality, and the singer is a prisoner to his sins, metaphorically. The singer midway through the song really basically starts screaming his lyrics, which paints the picture of him being crushed as well. The song ends somberly with the piano coming back and fades out for a reflective conclusion. I feel like I've talked a lot about this album already, but that was only the first song of 9. But it is the perfect kickoff to this album and a perfect representation of how the rest of the album plays out. The following song, The Blackest Bile, is a nice, slowcore acoustic song that kind of reminds me of Neutral Milk Hotel. It has a repeated humming throughout and picks up about halfway through with crushing drumming that sounds like someone stomping a stage. The lyrics continue the Salem theme that make me picture someone being burned at the stake as a witch, with lyrics like, all around me in the air hangs a wreath of blackest bile and smoke, and all around us hangs on air of darkest doom, and it flows out my lungs and slowly fills the room. This also seems like the lyricist is passively living or introverted, as he also describes himself as a lonely ghost. Like he breathes in smoke that only he can see, and it makes it like he is unable to speak. This makes me think that when he is around others having a conversation, he feels like all he can do is sit in silence. The next song, called Grave Filled with Books, is a relatively short song on this album at 4 minutes. It's a nice slow song with echoing vocals and guitar sounds that fill the song, with these beautiful harmonizing background vocals that complement Dan Barrett's lead vocals and lyrics. The lyrics continue this sort of depressing theme of loneliness with lines like, I think I've forgotten how to sleep and I am entombed in my bed, which sounds like he's saying he has no energy or will to get out of bed, which is a common symptom of depression. And then he belts these lyrics of I'm not the only one 3 times, and then finishing off with that you've never loved, all the while with this building instrumental in the background which fades into this beautifully somber guitar. It's a pretty song to break up the pace at this point in the track list that transitions nicely into the next one.
I tried to convey to you, before you died, an indication of survival after death.
The next song, called Empty Church, is what I think is the best Halloween song on the album. The song kicks off with what sounds like a British historian describing a spooky ghost event. He describes recordings during World War II of disembodied voices of an unknown language that was assumed to be German, but after the war ended, the voices continued. It has this eerie, off-putting vibe to it that reminds me of Poltergeist or Evil Dead, like he's summoning a ghost or demon from another dimension. The music builds behind his voice with the sound of an organ, then more instruments and vocals come in with this orchestral sound. With Dan Barrett repeating, "Maybe I'm just feeling crushed," relating the song back to Giles Corey, almost like he is embodying him through this song with the sample of the man telling the story of ghosts, narratively setting up that Giles Corey is speaking to Dan Barrett as a ghost. And the recording that is used ends the song saying, "I tried to convey to you before you die an indication of survival after death." Like he is warning people that there is an afterlife, and these recordings he's talking about are proof of that, which makes the next song more impactful as well. The next song is titled "I'm Going to Do It," and it's kind of going back to form with a little bit of a longer song at about 6 minutes. This song is a highly emotional build-up and has very beautiful and serene instrumentation, starting with this echoing singing that's hard to tell exactly what he's saying, with this light guitar playing that eventually has Barrett come in with more discernible lyrics with the repeated lines, "I'm going to kill myself, to kill myself, to kill myself, so there won't be nothing left," which I interpret as Barrett saying he's going to kill his sense of self and not literally committing suicide. This is how he lives on past death, much like it was explored in the last song. The afterlife is a better life, and killing his ego and shedding a more depression-filled, self-aware life. And this concept is explored further in the chorus. "You're everyone you hate when you're asleep or awake. All the choices you've made, you're everyone you hate, and it's ruining your life." He's saying in the chorus that he needs to make better choices and kill his old self because he is the person that he hates. And he needs to make a change because he feels himself ruining his own life. It's a beautiful song about anxiety and the crushing self-hating thoughts that can enter your mind if you let them take over. And the music reflects this feeling with some crushing orchestral sounds coming in during this chorus, with harmonizing vocals singing the chorus in tandem, literally echoing the feeling in the background, eventually fizzling out and fading into the next song.
I'll be your Spectral Bride.
The next song is called Spectral Bride, which starts with this very clear guitar strumming and more harmonizing, echoing voices coming in. And we get the lyrics. Angels singing in a choir, "Oh my Lord, I am on fire, what am I to do?" Voices singing into space, read their verse, "In my lonely face, what am I to do?" I interpret these first two verses as him talking about himself making the song, or his music in general, with Angels singing in a choir referencing how he sings the same lines in different melodies on this song, and layers them to get this ghostly effect and how lonely it seems instead of singing in unison with other people. And as the guitar-driven beginning of the song continues, we get the lyrics, "Because I don't deserve you. Not even for a moment, not even for a second will I ever be saved. My love's out to get me and you know it's going to succeed, and I hope I survive this fucking week alone." And I think these verses are him coming to terms with his anxiety or depression, and it almost sounds like he is talking directly to the audience here, or maybe just the people in his life. With the lines, "I don't deserve you, my love's out to get me, and I hope I survive this fucking week alone." Almost like he is saying he has love to give, but he is internalizing it and ends up feeling isolated. And I mentioned it briefly earlier, but the vocalization effect utilized on this song sounds very ghostly and spectral like the title implies, with the song bringing more instrumentation in the form of some light drumming and piano, and transitioning into this chorus that builds up to the end of the song. In this section, it seems like Dan Barrett is diving deeper into the afterlife themes being explored in the previous songs. Like after he has killed himself in the last song, he has now taken the form of a ghost. Or that now instead of bettering himself from killing his ego or his sense of self, that he feels like a ghost of his former self. Like he is just a shell, as he is now just a spectral bride, with the lyrics, "And if I don't survive, I'll still be by your side, just clad in ghostly white. I'll be your spectral bride." He uses this imagery of flowing white dresses like a bride, I think, to give the listener the mental image of this classic Halloween ghost in a white bed sheet. He's saying that after his self dies, he'll still be hanging there as his ghostly figure, still alive but feeling dead inside. This chorus takes us to the finale of the song, which has Dan Barrett belting "Bride" over and over and over again until it fades to nothing and we move into the next song, which is the highly viewed and listened to song "No One Is Ever Gonna Want Me" at almost 2 million views on YouTube. I'm not sure why on YouTube the song just randomly has way more views than the other songs, but it must be one of those songs that just gets picked up by the algorithm or TikTok and just reaches a lot of people. I'm not sure why this is, but it is a great song, so I'm glad it has reached so many people. But this one starts very slow and is the longest track on the album at a little over 8 minutes, which is also what surprises me that it has so many views. But once again, we have a song that is slow and methodical with this light sound, which I'm not exactly sure what instrument this is, but it almost sounds like this plucking on a violin or some stringed instrument that is echoing and repeating throughout the song. With this guitar sound coming in and filling up the empty space and some more somewhat ghostly and distant vocals coming in shortly after. With the lyrics, I am armed to the teeth like a fucking animal. I ruin everything I get my bony hands on, and here we go. Now over the bridge of sighs, we get across like Christ. Crucified, it's like a birth but in reverse. Never gets better, always gets worse. Which again, I feel like are references to ideas previously explored on earlier tracks with the self-hating lyrics of like a fucking animal, I ruin everything I get my bony hands on, obviously showing his frustration with himself, feeling like he can't do anything right, and referencing the crucifixion of Christ as a birth in reverse, meaning death, much like he has said previously about killing himself. Like this feeling of worthlessness makes him feel like dying, and the feeling never gets better and always gets worse. And as these lines are being sung, we get these organ sounds coming in, which swell and then go away with the song, going back to this empty sound with this echoing guitar strumming filling the emptiness again. And then the organ comes back as we get a repeat of the line about Christ and these background vocals saying, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, fall through the floor. Like this birth in reverse is resulting in him becoming this ghostly figure that falls through the floor. And after all this, we get this guitar playing that leads to this explosive finale with faster guitar and louder drumming and distorted horns blaring. And Dan Barrett fills the final 2 minutes with the repeated lines, I want to feel like I feel when I'm asleep, giving this emotional ending to the song that evokes this feeling of being disconnected. Like I had mentioned previously, this is like Dan Barrett saying he wants to feel like a ghost or a shell of his old self, feeling like you're asleep all the time, just like you're basically a walking dead.
How do I wake your sleeping arms?
And after this long song with that explosive finish, we get the more somber short reflection of the song Sleeping Heart. Again with this leading acoustic guitar and some chiming piano sounds, and Dan Barrett coming in with these lyrics, if I die, and I will, oh please bury me in the ground by the school where I once worked. If I'm killed, as I will, please raise a stone and inscribe all these here lonely words. To start off the song. And I think these lyrics prop up the story of the song as Dan Barrett giving into his impulses of suicidal thoughts and telling those close to him to do as he wishes in death. Almost like he is saying, do these things after he dies because he doesn't want to linger as it goes. Like, he won't have any reason to linger on if he is buried by the school where he once worked. And looking into these lyrics, I found that Dan Barrett's bandmate Tim Makuga, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing Makuga, in Have a Nice Life is a teacher, and apparently Dan himself has expressed that he has had dreams of being a teacher, which may explain this line. But I believe what he is saying with this line, and the line, his headstone should be inscribed with the words that he wants, is so that he can rest in peace and not linger on as a ghost. With the lonely words being inscribed on his headstone being the finale of the song, How Do I Wake Your Sleeping Heart? Which I believe is him wanting to bring back someone he's lost, which is why they are lonely words, and possibly why he has been expressing these lonely, depressive thoughts and feelings on the album as a whole. Maybe he feels if he dies and can be a ghost, he can be reunited with this person, and maybe even on the previous song, Empty Churches, is why he becomes enamored with this thought. Like he's trying to contact someone on that plane of existence. But it ends with these lines repeated in beautiful harmony and transitions nicely into the final song on the album. This album closes perfectly with Buried Above Ground, and is a sort of reprised, mostly instrumental version of the first song that gives this whole album a cinematic feel, with the title of the song itself being a lyric from the first song on the album as well, which I didn't really even mention when I was talking about that song, but is the perfect line to focus in on because it ties all of the themes of this album together in a neat little bow. It ties into the ghostly nature of this album as if to say he is walking the earth as a dead person, like he himself is buried above ground, much like a dead person would be buried above ground. And it ties in with the historical figure Giles Corey, as he was literally buried above ground, as he was killed by adding weight on top of him until he was crushed alive, which also ties into this feeling of depression and anxiety, feeling like a weight that is burying Dan Barrett above ground. It also reprises those lyrics, there's a devil on my back, legs, chest, and neck, to further emphasize this feeling that has been explored so thoroughly throughout the album. And the instrumentation again reflects this emotional buildup, with that same melody from the first song carried to the end, with horns, guitars, drums, and organs. It makes me feel like this album was a score to a spooky movie I've never seen, and this is the final song playing over the end credits. I would highly recommend every song on this album. This album was really a very eclectic album overall, with no song sounding exactly like another. Many different instruments and sounds are explored while staying cohesive throughout, and I think this album is truly one of the best I've ever heard to capture this feeling of depression, with this unique ability to connect it to this real-life historical figure in such a profound way. It really is a masterpiece I can't recommend enough. But anyway, I think I've gushed and rambled enough about this album for this video. This has been Full Album Playlist. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't, and I'll see you in the next one.